tries to mug you? What? What if your government tries to throw you in a can? What? You're gonna want a shotgun. Oh. What? An automatic rifle. And a lot of ammo. Gun? Yeah, gun.
We're all set to riot. Buy a gun. Before you lose your Second Amendment. Buy a gun. They'll burn you out like you Waco. They'll stick your ass in a camp. Jack for the cops in riot gear. Gonna kick your ass and laugh. The revolution is on its way. Better lock and load your AK. Buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. Buy a gun, buy a gun, buy a gun, buy a gun, buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. We're all set to riot. Buy a gun before you lose your Second Amendment. Buy a gun. They gave your money to the banksters. They stole your pension funds. It's time that we took to the streets. It's time we had our turn. A revolution is on its way, and the founding fathers would say, buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. Buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. Revolution's not clean and neat, you gotta riot in the streets. Revolution's not clean and neat, you gotta drag them through the streets.
It is Tuesday. We are live. This is PrimerTime. My name is Michael.
I'm Nick, and all of our emails are unclassified.
And my server is not located in a bathroom.
Oh, boy. I tell you what. Oh, Hillary in some deep doo-doo.
Hillary in some deep doo-doo, and who looks to be the golden boy right now, Mr. Bernie Sanders, talking some mad smack about gun control.
Oh, lay it on us.
Okay, Bernie Sanders has said, in the United States, we have a problem with firearms, and when he becomes president, there won't be any firearms sold that kill people.
Oh, how's he planning on doing that?
Well, you know, he's going to refer back to the Second Amendment clause that provides for duck hunting and deer hunting.
Oh. Well, that's
And, well, you know, just like any other communist or any other socialist or any other Bolshevik, they don't want you to have guns. They're not necessarily anti-gun. They're just anti-you having a gun. They're perfectly fine, perfectly happy with having a gun because that's how they have to enforce their project.
Yeah, of course. Because without a way to defend yourself, you're just part of their grist for the mill.
You are either a useful idiot or you are sent to the gulag.
Yeah, definitely.
Or you could become a party member, and that's where the benefits are at. And we should, you know, look to our current leadership for the memberships of the benefits of party membership.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You know, a lot of people, you know. He played around. Bernie Sanders played around with the whole I'm an independent to get elected. Then he goes and caucuses with the Democrats, and then over the course of time, the true colors show, and it's I'm a socialist. So you know, there is no difference between that side of the house and socialism. So yeah,
and we've seen that the socialism, and especially this international socialism, this global socialism that Bernie's people and Bernie himself and his people, his backers like to push, really is nothing more than a front for Bolshevism.
Yeah, and they don't have any. They don't have the good kind of Bolsheviks that like to sell the AK-47s either.
No. These are the Bolsheviks, and kind of like with a post-Stalinist mindset, but you know they got no problem, you know, putting down enemies of the state. So just remember, you're a firearm owner, you are an enemy of the state, and you should act accordingly.
Yeah, and speaking of acting accordingly, I went to my local Walmart to check and see about picking up some certain types of ammunition, and I was very surprised.
Certain types?
Yeah, actually more like certain makes. And I was very surprised to find out that Walmart in my area has discontinued the sales of ZQI Industries 5.56 SS109 ammunition.
That's odd. That's very odd. Excuse me. They suspended that. Now, did they suspend just sales from that company, or have they suspended all sales of 5.56?
You know, I don't know if it's what I'm thinking it is that as far as their forecasting goes, they're discontinuing ordering and maintaining that stock on hand at Walmart, because they did have other 5.56. They still had Federal. They still had some. I think they still had some other assorted American Eagle. I think that's still manufactured under the Federal brand. But the ZQI stuff is stuff that's locally sourced, I would say, by way of Turkey. But it was just interesting that within the last couple of weeks, that stock has dried up, because they still sell the ZQI 7.62 by 5.1 NATO rounds.
Now, I've not heard of any kind of problems or issues or recalls with that ammunition. So this appears to be some sort of manufacturer and retailer issue between Walmart and ZQI.
That's what it sounds like. Yeah, definitely. And when I actually went and spoke to the knowledgeable individual at the sporting goods firearms counter, he just said, the only information that I can give you right now is that it's no longer going to be, it's no longer going to be stocked. It's no longer going to be, forecasted for order. And just going around looking on some of the different sources for information that's out there, it seems that as of about March, they had made the decision at Walmart to exhaust the supply, and we're not going to go ahead and start, refurbishing that stuff. So the benefit of ZQI ammo at Walmart was that it was about 33 cents per round as compared to about 55, 56 for the American Eagle brand.
Right, I've noticed that the ZQI ammo, especially in 9mm, appeared to be really the value price leader right there. It was coming in cheaper than aluminum case stuff from either Federal or CCI. It was coming in cheaper than Blazer Brass from CCI. It was coming in cheaper than Winchester White Box, which is rapidly, I'm losing kind of losing my taste for Winchester White Box in the 115 grain loading full metal jacket for 9mm. I'm finding it to be a little less than consistent. And that kind of like scares me now. I'm just not really happy with squibs or anything. I haven't had any, but in the past couple weekends, I have had a chance to fire a couple rounds of it, and it just didn't seem to throw my case clear enough. And to me, that's a problem with the amount of gas pressure it's creating. So I don't know if I'm getting incomplete burns of powder with the Winchester White Box or what, but
that's one of those things that a lot
to the point where I've had to actually check my weapon because the report sounded different. Well, I had to actually stop.
Like you're probably not getting a complete burn. I think that you're having some probably some issues with whatever powder load that they're using.
And that's Winchester White Box, so I'm guessing that it's whatever powder that Walmart didn't want for something else, because it appears to be crap.
Yeah. So
in your local retailing big box store that starts with the W and ends with the destruction of the United States, what was the 22 ammo?
So that was the second thing that I went to go take a look at, and the rotund, knowledgeable individual at the counter went ahead and told me that between 7 and 8 on Tuesdays and Thursdays, if you're not standing there at the counter, you will not have a chance at it. And like most working Americans, at 7 or 8 in the morning, I'm either A, already at work, or B, I am on the road to get to work. So chances of me being able to stop over and check the counter just to see if it's still in there, slim and none.
Yeah. Are you noticing that it's being bought, or was he able to tell you that it was being bought by the same 7 guys?
No, he did make mention of the old guys. So apparently these folks are, I would say of the retiree category, and probably not have a whole lot left to do during the day.
So you're still facing a whole lot of the online secondary sales with the subsequent jacked up price.
Yeah, and actually even not even the online sales anymore. Now it's mostly just the stuff that are going to the gun shows, the guys that are, taking their hoard of ammo to the gun show and peddling it there.
And well, if it's those same kind of guys that are doing it in my area, you're going to find that gun shows will have plenty of 22, and you are not going to see it for any less than 8 cents a round. And if it's what I would consider to be premium ammo, or more importantly, what they would consider to be premium ammo, they charge accordingly. So you're looking at, for CCI Stingers, you're looking at about 12, 15, maybe 20 cents a round on that. So, yeah. It still seems kind of like we're in the rush, and in one of my online forums, it's been kind of the question again as to why is there no 22 ammo? It's been long enough, and you really got to kind of take a look at the law of supply and demand and take into account the factors that would affect the law of supply and demand. Just right off the top of my head, it's estimated that there's between 70 and 90 million gun owners in the United States. So let's just take that low end of 70, and let's just assume, which is a fair assumption to make, I think, and I think you'll probably agree with me, that half of those gun owners, of those 70 million gun owners in the United States, have a 22 long rifle. Do you think that's a fair assessment?
Yeah, I would say that probably most firearms owners probably start out with that, and if they don't have one on hand, they've had one in the past. So yeah, that's pretty accurate.
Well, but I think it's fair to say that current owners, about half of the current firearms owners have a 22.
Yeah.
So that would give us a number of 35 million. Now you got to take into account that every one of those firearms owners wants a brick of 22.
Yep.
So that's 500 rounds times 35 million, which gives you 17.5 billion rounds that needs to be made to satisfy just that initial lust for ammo right there. Well, CCI only makes about 4 million rounds a day. So if you were going to have maximum production, it would take about 4.5 years of the 4 million rounds a day just to satisfy that. Now, once again, that of course is only CCI's number, but that's kind of gives you an idea of what we're looking at for the delay in the 22 long rifle.
Yeah, and and that's one of those things that kind of caused me to get out of the 22 long rifle market. Number one, there's limited opportunities and places for me to shoot out here. Number two, it's just not available to pick in stores. So, to have something that you can't even buy ammunition for just kind of makes it worthless in my regard and estimation. But for folks that do have that opportunity to go into their backyard and on their back 40 and shoot up a bunch of tin cans or water balloons or tannerite or whatever it is that they've got, it's still a cost-effective way to go out and shoot. And especially if you have the opportunity to go out and put on a suppressor, really reducing the sound and do something cool like that, a lot of people have fun with it.
Now, for the people who don't have the opportunity for a suppressor, CCI makes a reduced noise load, which of course they reduce the noise by reducing the speed of the bullet. They call it the CCI Quiet, and it runs at 870 feet per second with a 40 grain bullet, a 40 grain jacketed solid point bullet. I fired a couple of rounds of that. It will not cycle a Ruger 1022. It will cycle a Ruger Mark II pistol occasionally. It's not real consistent. But the report is significantly quieter than a standard, let's say a ultra velocity or high velocity 22 long rifle round, or even a pistol velocity at 1070. It comes in much quieter than that, and I think that's because it doesn't break the sound barrier and you don't get the crack.
Right, and I think that's one of the things that, as comparing a 22 to a much larger caliber, when you get that report and you get that explosion of gas leaving the muzzle, for hunters, it's really important to be able to mitigate that sound, not only to, I wouldn't say hide your position, but really protect your hearing. Certain states, you can do it no problem. I think Texas is one of the ones that legalized it last year for hunting. Other places
we did, and I'll tell you, there's a lot of guys really getting in on it. Guys that 10 years ago, 5 years ago, would have never considered buying a suppressor. They're in on it now, and that's a growing portion of the firearms community is the people who are getting in on gun trusts to get these NFA items.
Well, yeah, and not only that, they actually need to be able to lawyer up, as they say, so that way they can go ahead and transfer these items in the event of their death to family members. So that's part of getting that trust is making sure that your items that you've paid your $200 tax stamp on are able to be legally transferred upon your death and departure.
Well, and not only that, there's also laws about who can handle these weapons. And let's say you've got a 17-year-old son who's going to go out and hunt, and he'd like to take out the suppressed rifle. Well, if he's on the well, actually, I don't know about a 17-year-old. That was probably a bad example. But I know that if he's 18 years old, if he's on the trust, he can go out and take the weapon of his own accord and use it. And that's kind of nice.
Yeah, I mean,
now,
the big thing to me is about protecting your hearing, because for folks out there that haven't experienced hearing loss, it can really mess with you. I mean, you talk about something that really impacts your quality of life. Losing any one of your sensory abilities, that's pretty rough. But hearing is one of those things that I think a lot of people just take for granted until it starts to decline on them. Technology is such a way now where they have your Bluetooth capable hearing aids. But I tell you what, nothing beats not having to use that stuff. I mean, it's pretty important to be able to protect your hearing, and I think that's one thing that a lot of shooters don't particularly like is having to wear big, bulky earmuffs, whether they're the electronic earmuffs or whether they're just the standard decibel-reducing earmuffs. Some people just opt for the soft foam earplugs, but using your electronic earmuffs, the noise-canceling ones, in conjunction with the suppressor, I think just makes for an overall more enjoyable experience.
I'd agree with you 100% on that, and really that's what we're looking at. We're looking at increasing the enjoyment for ourselves, and then bringing in new people and making the sport enjoyable for new people, so they become active in it. They become active purchasers of a firearm. They become active supporters of the Second Amendment right. And if you're bringing a new person out and they aren't scared of the firearm and they're willing to practice it more, you've made a convert. Conversely, if you bring out somebody for the first time who's kind of got a fear of the firearm, and you hand them the double barrel 10 gauge and say, "Go ahead and pull both barrels," both triggers right there.
Yeah.
You're really not helping the situation. A lot of guys think it's kind of macho and funny to bring their small girlfriend out, or a lady out who's not really been shooting, and then give them a 12 gauge and ha ha ha, isn't that funny? You're not helping anybody, and it's not that funny.
Yeah, and that's.
I mean, even no matter how many views it gets on YouTube, you're really just kind of reinforcing my opinion that you're a jackass if you do something like that.
Yeah, and here's the thing: when you're trying to introduce someone to the shooting sports, you want to make sure that it's as comfortable an outing for them as possible. Take a look at environmental factors, whether it's cold, whether it's blazing hot. You just want to make sure that whatever you do, and if you're trying to bring somebody in, you make it so that it's enjoyable for them, that they're going to want to come back and be involved. It's amazing to me to see those videos on YouTube of the 98-pound soaking wet girlfriend trying to shoulder and fire a 12-gauge shotgun for the first time, ends up knocking her flat on her butt.
Conversely, they do it with a handgun as well.
Yeah.
Here, try this 454 line bar revolver. Yeah, thanks a lot. No, that's not cool.
Yeah. So just think about it before you go take somebody new out, especially if they're kids, because you talk about the way that certain ideologies get born and get passed on. It's all through the education system, because you get them when they're young, right? That's the same thing with the shooting sports. You take a youngster out shooting, you take a youngster out fishing, out into the outdoors. That's one less youngster that you're going to have to pry off the streets. So do the smart thing, folks.
And when it comes down to it, the price of a decent 22 rifle and a decent supply of ammunition and magazines, all pretty much everything you need for it, comes in cheaper than the price of a brand new Xbox.
Oh, certainly. Yeah, you can for anywhere between $250 and $300, you can come in and heck, even if you wanted to go out and give them something that's the Mossberg 702 Plinkster, that's $150 to $200.
That means you really don't like. That means if you give somebody Mossberg 702 Plinkster, that means you really don't like them.
Yeah. Well, check this out. I got a story in our gun buyback file for you.
Give it to me.
All right. So Boston.
Or a gun buyback, take it from me.
Yeah. So Boston's 2015 gun buyback program nets a grand total of 1 firearm.
Was it black?
Well, it was a very, very, very old pistol. And, they declined to even give the make and model. But in 2014, by start comparison, Boston secured more than 400 firearms. But largely, these were firearms that were almost demilitarized due to the conditions of barrels, conditions of actions. It's very interesting that the Boston buyback program had a budget of $100,000, and in 2014 they only collected about 400 firearms. They had the same problem this year, but collected 1. And the individual was a 16-year-old male who turned it in for a Target gift card. And I'm only assuming that he did that so he could shop where there weren't any kind of gender-biased clothing signs, so he could make sure that he could shop in a gender-free environment.
In a gender-neutral and somewhat supporting his right to be androgynous.
Yes, that's what it is.
I'm buying a really, really just totally heterosexual pair of Levi's later on, probably. So
I think they call those skinny jeans now.
No, I know. Well, let's be honest here. I don't get to wear nothing that's labeled skinny.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I shop in the husky section myself.
I personally like to have breakfast every now and then, so I don't get to be labeled as skinny.
Yeah. So, that's interesting that these gun buyback programs are still being attempted time after time. And, I go back to the Connecticut buyback program that had the picture of the very angry officer who looked like she just had a bowl of feces for breakfast that day.
Bowl of angry lesbian for breakfast.
Yeah, I don't know that she was a lesbian. She didn't put that on her sleeve. One can only.
But
assume.
it's a fair guess.
Yeah,
if we're gonna be doing it, we might as well.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, she was pretty angry looking. But I mean, I think that people are starting to see that the narrative that's out there. It's just it lacks common sense.
And that's something I think they count on. And there was recently an article from the Bloomberg publication that's dedicated to the anti-gun outlook, which I will not give them any sort of shout out. I will not mention their name. I'll just say it's the Bloomberg publication dedicated to the anti-gun view. Came up with the just completely interesting statistic that says in areas where there are more firearms, there are more chances for somebody to be shot by one.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, and that's just let's extrapolate that out into areas with more vehicles. You're more likely to be in a vehicle accident.
Yeah.
So once again, we can thank the Bloomberg organization for just giving us plain simple science that we can all relate to.
Yes. Yeah, it's science for the masses, right? That's the way they prefer it. So,
right. For science for the bumbling idiot masses.
Yeah, that's why we have lotteries too. But
the lotteries are taxed on the people who are bad at math. Yep. Let's be honest with.
So in other gun buyback news, for our listeners out there in the tri-state area, Memphis, Tennessee, they're doing a gas, groceries, or cash for guns. and it's going to result in a $50 gift card to a Kroger or Mapco store. And they're even trying to get vouchers for the Memphis Grizzly basketball and University of Memphis football games. But, what I want to point out about this story is the mayor, A.C. Wharton of Memphis, says, "We know how destructive even one gun can be. And that's why if we just get one gun off the streets and out of the wrong hands, gas or groceries for guns will be a success." So what he's saying is, I'm going to set the bar pretty low, and if I get one thing, it's going to justify me spending a whole ton of your money.
That's right, because, you said it earlier. While one of the organizations had a budget of $100,000.
Yeah, that was Boston.
All right, so Boston had a budget of $100,000, and they collected 41 guns. Is that correct?
No, one pistol, singular.
One pistol.
One pistol.
Okay, so let's look at what in the past we've seen that gun buybacks they break down the amount of the goodie that you get, your compensation, by what is turned in, and traditionally a handgun has been on the lower end of the buyback scale, usually below $100.
Yeah.
So if they gave that guy $100 for that handgun,
value for whatever you turn in.
Well, absolutely not. No fair market value. And, that's also interesting. In Australia, when they had their massive their gun confiscation, they were claimed to give fair market value for the firearms, and they gave nowhere near the fair market value. I believe that it turned out to be the equivalent of $250 in a place where an AR-15 at that time sold for $1,500.
Right. So
their definition of fair market value and your definition of fair market value are going to be significant amounts of dollars apart.
Right. And that's the thing. I genuinely believe that they're targeting this and they're marketing this as two separate things. They're targeting the gun, for the gun turn-ins. They're targeting the people who are maybe, aged or senior citizens, people who they can say, hey, if you've got that gun in your closet or it's underneath your bed or it's inside your mattress and you just want to get it out of your house, come be responsible. Take it to us. We'll take care of it. But what they market it as a win for the gun control crowd is they'll do the turn-in some portion of the inner city where there's, sad-looking kids who are holding pictures of deceased relatives and saying, this was a massive or this is a success beyond all compare. And I think that people just got to know, if it's the 85-year-old widower who, hey, he's just got nothing to do. He's got nobody to pass his guns on to, or the 87-year-old widow who really never had anything to do with her husband's firearms in the past. That's one thing. And it's almost like, hey, you know what? Take it to an estate sale. Get compensation, pass that on. But don't fall victim to this. It's a scam. It's a total scam.
Well, it's not only a total scam, but it just goes to show that the people of the United States are easily influenced by shiny lights and blinking objects and happy sounding electronic noises. There's not a whole lot of thought process involved in this. And once again, by appealing to the baser instincts and to the primal fears that people have, they can get a lot done.
Yeah. And that's, we go back to marketing fear. And I think that, you have a certain population out there that, for a time, many of our folks that grew up and were working or out of work even during the Great Depression, they have known guns as a part of their life for the last 80 years. Though that generation sadly is starting to really die off in large numbers, and there's not many left. But, that's the same folks that used to keep, cash reserves in glass jars buried in their fields because they didn't trust the banks. So what makes you think that they're going to trust a young whippersnapper of a public servant to go out there and tell them what's good for them when they've lived
He's got
through
a badge, dude.
Yeah.
He's got a badge.
They've lived through it all.
He's got a badge.
Seen it all.
Yeah, but this is the new society. This is 1,000 points of light.
Yeah. Well, whether it's Memphis, whether it's Orlando, whether it's Boston, the ones in Tucson always get my attention, just because it's like, you know what, they only go into certain sections of the town because
Right, and it's an area you're familiar with, so you know what goes on in that town. And Arizona gun buybacks are a fairly interesting subject because Arizona's got fairly liberal laws when it comes to firearms and firearms ownership and the sale and transfer of firearms. It's a person-to-person state. It's an open carry state. It's a concealed carry if you want. It's a constitutional carry state, and it's a constitutional transfer state.
And not only that, they have the responsibility and the obligation as a law enforcement agency that when they do conduct these gun buybacks, that they are mandated that they have to sell those firearms on the open market.
Right. So we've seen that Tucson hasn't necessarily had, or actually a lot of places in Arizona haven't had many gun buybacks. They have had a few, and they're usually set upon by firearms enthusiasts who will try and buy from the people who are lining up. And, good for them. Good for them.
Yeah.
I hope that firearms enthusiasts are more than willing to pony up a couple of bucks. Give them a little bit more. Give them double what they're going to get in that for their gift card. And you may get yourself a nice piece of history, something that's not available anywhere else, kind of a rare item. Maybe it's a classic item, and you can get that for a decent price.
Right. Well, it's...
And you're supporting the gun for the anti-gun forces when you do it.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. We haven't talked about George Zimmerman, speaking of gun cases, in a while. And I thought you might be interested to hear that he is teaming up with the Muslim-free gun shop owner and saying that they're going to be raising money for his legal defense and its legal defense by selling a Confederate flag painted by Zimmerman that states over the stars and bars that the Second protects our First Amendments.
Well, I don't know what to say about that because I personally... George Zimmerman is kind of a jackass, and
I think it's kind of interesting.
It is. It's kind of like Stumpy interesting. I think the guy who owns that Muslim gun shop is kind of good at public relations, or not. Actually, he's probably not necessarily good with public relations. He's good at getting his name out there and causing some controversy. I think he's opened himself up to a wide array of lawsuits, and with picking Zimmerman as your spokesperson, I think you've kind of limited your audience.
I don't know that he's saying that he's going to be a spokesperson. I think what it is that they're marketing artwork that Zimmerman is creating. The story goes on to say that Zimmerman's last painting sold on eBay for over $100,000. So maybe there's a niche market out there for folks who want to have some of his.
They got $100,000 to spend on something.
Hey, I'll tell you what, could be buying real estate, right?
I'll sell you some oceanfront property, damn near.
Yeah. So it's amazing because this image or lithograph is going to go for $48.90 cash or $50 credit for store purchases. So it's going to support legal funds, living expenses, and advancing their mission to change the country. And a percentage of the proceeds will also go directly.
Don't say things like, "Oh, I'm trying to get a sip in." That's just funny.
Yeah. A percentage of the proceeds will also go directly to a charity of our choosing. And the gentleman in the name who runs the store is called Andy Hallinan. And you're right. He's striking while the iron is hot, as a person is wont to do in times to try and cash in on the 15 minutes of fame.
And we see the striking while the iron is hot on both sides because, to be honest with you, every time that there is some sort of incident that gets a lot of media attention, the cry for gun control, that's nothing more than striking while the iron is hot.
Oh, of course.
We like to call it reaction, but that's really what it is.
Yeah,
and
we saw the same thing with. We saw the same thing with as soon as the individual shot up the church in Charleston, the forces that are out there that wanted to break down the symbolism behind the Army of Northern Virginia's Rebel War banner, which is not to be confused with the actual Confederate States of America flag. you know, you could only get so much traction without something that was a polarizing event that would get people to get behind the movement. And I think that, you know, those of us that are intelligent enough to see it, you can kind of forecast and see things like that coming. But yeah, I think that it's interesting to find out that old George Zimmerman, and whether he's getting shot at or whether he's driving his vehicle and pulling up next to people who want him dead, it's surprising that he's still up and kicking.
I'm surprised that dude just hasn't moved the fuck out of Florida.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, really, if I was him, I'd have been gone.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that he's pretty much a marked man. I would say that there's quite a population of folks out there that are willing to, overextend themselves to make sure that something bad happens to them.
Right, yeah. There's plenty of people out there willing to bust a cap in his ass, and that's plenty of notoriety for them. They'll be the man who shot Liberty Valance after that.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
yeah, it's.
I don't know. I think he's a polarizing figure. He, in the end, I don't think he's good for gun owners. I don't think he's good for the gun ownership movement. He's not good for Second Amendment rights. No matter what he tries to say, he's probably be better off for all of us if he just shut the hell up.
Yeah, and there's folks that are just going to continue to go back to him and say, hey, this is what's wrong with the gun owning community. And every organization, every class of society has their people that we'd rather not say have anything to do with representing us, but we get labeled with it, and I think he's one of those guys.
All right. So let me change the focus to this, and let's go back a little bit. You were at your local big box store where we saw your LACA 22 and the interesting information about the ZQI 5.56 not being carried by men anymore.
Right.
What were they looking at? Go right ahead.
I was going to say, I think what this ends up coming down to, in terms of not selling that ZQI ammo anymore, is that ZQI is actually just making a business decision. They're saying basically that at 33 cents a round, it's not going to be economically viable for them to continue selling and stay in business. So, whether or not they're going to continue to sell it online, which is, going to their website, it's available in many different amounts. You can get it in boxes of 50. You can get it up to cases of 1,000. So they're going to continue to sell it on their website. It's just a matter of that's one more brand that you're not going to be able to choose from when you want.
Well, and I wonder if this is a national thing or if it's just at your store, because to be honest, it's all over. ZQI ammo is all over my Walmarts, the Walmarts that are near me.
Well, see, and that's what I'd be interested to see, is that if in other parts of the country, if the 5.56 SS109 62 grain ammunition is still for sale, the company itself says that we're going to exhaust it, and we're going to only sell it online at ZQIammo.com. But, when the guy at the counter tells me, he's like, hey, it's been discontinued for us, I know that we're not ordering it anymore. So I don't know if it's an amicable decision between, the retailer and the manufacturer, or if it's just a business decision at that point.
I'm almost thinking it's a business decision, because I don't really see any kind of halt to people purchasing SS109. That's one of the most popular rounds for the AR-15 or the 5.56 platform of any choice. I don't really see them turning off that cash cow.
Right.
So to me, it sounds like it's just more of a local Walmart decision right there. At your store, what was the supply of handgun ammunition like?
So handgun ammunition, 45 is available, 40 caliber Smith & Wesson is available, and all kinds of configurations of 9mm are available. But I didn't see any 38 special. I didn't see any 32. And that's just kind of it. It's like you're almost pigeonholed into 4 calibers. You're either 40 caliber, 45, 9mm, or 38 special. I did not see any of the 410 personal defense ammo that would be shot from like a Judge or a Bond Arms or something like that. And I think they had the PDX, ammo. That was about it.
Yeah, and that's actually not that big of a loss, because I found that for personal defense ammo, especially the stuff designed for the judge, that stuff usually comes out to be $1 a round, and to me, that's just a little too expensive for 410 shotgun shells.
Right. In my area, we have counties that are strictly shotgun only when it comes to hunting season, and the counties themselves don't even have firing ranges. So there's ordinances against the firing of rifles. So you got to kind of take that into consideration whenever you're marketing ammunition. And the way I look at it is, in my area specifically, there's no restrictions on whether being able to shoot rifles or shotguns. It's just that this area has a very rich shotgunning tradition. We can't even shoot fox in our area. The foxes are protected year round out here.
Well, that's really kind of just like a handout to the medical industry, because, well, somebody's got to make some kind of profit off those rabies vaccines and stuff.
Yeah, well, but they do allow them to be chased by dogs on your own horseback. So that's the interesting thing.
Well, and so they don't allow you to shoot the fox, but you could totally harass them and then enslave your dog and take away your dog's right to sit around and do nothing. I don't know if I like this new math.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, what was the firearm availability inside that Walmart? Walmart, to me, has always been an interesting firearms retailer, because they will sell pretty much everything that will be sold at a big box store, but a lot of their things are special run items made for Walmart. Well, let's just take, say, a Remington 870 shotgun, for example. Well, functionally and in all appearances, it may be the exact same 870 shotgun that you could buy at a gun shop or at a different big box retailer. Usually the one for Walmart will have some cost-saving features cut in to it that are exclusively for Walmart. Let's just say some portions or some parts are replaced with a polymer rather than a cast metal piece, a non-strained, a non-stressed piece. Maybe it may have a plastic trigger versus a cast trigger.
Right. Well, that's one of those things. You take a look at least in my area, when you go to the counter, Walmart traditionally has the ammo rack, and then behind where the cash register is, there's the two carousel gun cabinets, and they are full of rifles and shotguns. There's the carbine 1022. There's 4 or 5 different kinds of shotguns. And then there's also like 4 or 5 different ARs. In my area, they didn't stop selling ARs. I think they pulled some of them back, but they have a full carousel. So there's not a whole lot that they're missing. Although the associate did tell me that guns like they used to, and I find that that's pretty interesting.
Well, I've noticed in the 3 Walmarts that are near me. They will have rifles, they will have shotguns, and they've got pretty much a decent selection of 22 rifles from the 3 manufacturers I can think of right off would be Ruger, Marlin, and Mossberg. They've got quite a selection of those. Interesting in regards to the Mossberg, they don't sell any of the Mossberg 22s that would have the appearance of a so-called assault rifle.
Right, so that's their 702.
They're not selling the 715T Plinker. They're not selling that, and they're not selling the new Mossberg that kind of looks like an AK-47 but functions nothing like an AK-47.
Right, exactly.
They don't have those, but they do have regular 702 Blink and things like that. Ruger 1022s, plenty of pump shotguns from Mossberg and from Remington. Lots of single-shot shotguns, no doubles of any kind at the Walmarts near me. Those, I think that's just a little pricey out of Walmart. And interestingly, being in the land of guns everywhere, the Walmarts near me are not selling any sort of evil black rifles.
Yeah, so that's got to be something that comes down from a corporate standpoint, because, like I said, and it has to be regional, I would say. In my area, they still have those on the rack, and there wasn't any kind of blowback. There wasn't any kind of protesting saying, save our children or whatnot, and having the people out there saying that the the evil black jumping out of their cabinets at night and going to schools that are gun-free zones. Like I said, it's in my area, and maybe it's just because the major universities out here, the type of people that are here, they just don't tend to buy rifles. And it's weird because I think that's where Walmart tends to make their money. If you want a decent 300 shot, you go with a Mossberg. What I'm interested in finding out is some of the CZ double barrel shotguns. Those are actually pretty affordable, but Walmart doesn't stock them where I'm at.
Right. Walmart's not stocking any doubles near me either, and it's expensive than a pump shotgun. And I'm not seeing a whole lot of the CZ doubles, but what I am seeing are a lot of Turkish doubles in my area. Yildiz and Huglu are two companies that seem to be really pushing a lot of shotguns. And I've had experience with Yildiz shotguns. They're very nice. They're not the quality of a Beretta, but they function exactly like a Beretta should. They maybe a little rougher finish. Maybe the wood doesn't fit quite as nice, but they eject and they discharge both barrels easily. So that's something.
I think that if you're going to break into the market and you don't want to spend a ton of money on picking up a decent double barrel shotgun, if you can't get a hold of yourself like an older Stevens or a New England Firearms, you may even be able to go in and pick up a Baikal or a Yildiz shotgun. And I happen to have an S model 500, and it's a trap gun. But I'll tell you what.
Well, I'd like to have that.
as soon as we make it down there. So that shotgun it's an over under, but it's taken deer. So I think that if you want to get utility out of it, try and use it for something that may not be exactly what it was designed for, but see how it functions for you. Because a guy like me, I'm not a trapper. I don't do very well with wing shooting at birds. But if it's on the ground and it's brown, it's going to be down.
That'll work. I personally like to shoot stuff in the air. To me, that's a little bit more funny. I get more of a community experience with my friends when I get a chance to shoot up in the air. It allows for more conversation on the ground, more just having fun in my book when I shoot birds rather than when I shoot stuff on the ground. Shooting stuff on the ground to me sometimes can be a lot like playing golf with somebody who's really, really intense about it. There's just not a lot of conversation. Well, I smoke cigars now and then, and that's just something that's not necessarily enjoyed by other hunters. The smell of smoke will drive game away from you, where you don't have that problem when it's birds in the air.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that probably a product of our times as we were growing up. One of the best things that you could do was be able to go to one of those large arcades and pull off the skeet shooting. I remember that from way back in the day.
Right. And I don't know if it's not necessarily a gun topic, but it kind of leads into the firearms culture and how it's viewed. One of the video games that would have a firearm in them, now the firearm that you would use as your input into the game really doesn't actually have a kind of a firearms appearance anymore. It has a tendency to look like either a squirt gun or some kind of cartoonish prop gun.
Yeah.
Right. And I can see that for some like space-based video games or something. But I really don't think that it has anything to do with the games. I think it's more the culture. You can't expose children to something that's a fairly realistic-looking orange shotgun. It's
yeah. And
I don't know. I'm not necessarily a video game guy.
Yeah, and this kind of ties it back in because there's a report out that says violent video games that have firearms in them are more likely to create children who are desensitized to killing. And so this is the Hillary Clinton "it takes a village" argument that says, if they're not a product of their society and upbringing, then what are they? Well, basically, what it comes down to is that if you teach your young generation how to respect firearms and how to respect life, you're not going to have any of those problems. And while we're at it, Michael, let's firearms. By go ahead and break down some gun safety rules.
All right. Well, first rule and firearm safety is every firearm is loaded until you physically and visually ensure that it is not loaded. So go ahead and pop that cylinder out, drop that magazine, pull that slide back, crack that action open, throw that bolt back, make sure that there is not any ammo in there, and when you close it up, make sure you're not going to reload it. Rule number 2. Keep that muzzle in the safe direction. Don't point it at anything you don't want to destroy. Rule number 3 is know what your target is and know it is beyond your target at all times. And Nick, truly, I say it every week, but to me it's the most important rule. Please keep your booger hook off the bang switch until you are ready to discharge the firearm. That means keep the trigger guard. Do not place your finger on the trigger. It doesn't look cool when you take a selfie with your finger on the trigger. If you're using that photo to sell a firearm, people immediately look at you and think you're kind of a rank amateur. It's just not safe, and don't give the forces that wish to take away our rights any more ammunition. I mean, we've got a tough enough fight, and we don't need anybody giving them a hand.
Yeah, definitely. Don't take one for the other team.
Right. So, in some interesting firearms news, Tiger Industries has been bought by Palmetto State Armory. Now, Palmetto State Armory is an online retailer that has been kind of a value-priced outlet for people in the game. And they've come out with some excellent quality products. They're building their own AR-15 loaders. They build their own AK-47s now, and these are not parts kits. They're actually bending their own frames and making their own barrels. So Palmetto State Armory is becoming a bigger player in the firearms industry than before. And they've purchased a competitor, Tiger Industries, which appeared to be more of a retailer of accessories. They really had some knockout deals on optics and furniture kits.
So is this Royal Tiger or Tiger Industries?
No, this is not Royal Tiger. Royal Tiger is a completely different set of jackasses.
Okay, I got to keep my jackasses in line here.
Yeah, that's right. We almost need a scorecard to keep these jackasses straightened out. I personally, now that you brought Royal Tiger up, I wouldn't spend any money with them. I've known several people who have tried to spend money with Royal Tiger, and they were not satisfied with what they received. I personally had several communications or attempted communications with Royal Tiger. They've had some items that I wish to know a little bit more of, and they would have a single photo of the item. And these are some of the items that you kind of got to have a good look at the thing all the way around it. And they're not really good about responding to anybody. So I don't know if they're just short-staffed or they don't care, or maybe it's a combination of both. But Royal Tiger's not my favorite. Now, that being said, I didn't have any kind of dealings with Tiger Industry before. I did see some ads for them, and it was optics and lasers and things like that they were selling. But it seemed to be that they'd have the same things optics-wise and furniture-wise as Palmetto State would have, but it would kind of be on sale in opposite week of Palmetto State. So I think that they had some sort of business relation prior, and this just kind of brings them all underneath one tent.
Well, see, here's the thing. Not to say anything, as far as your story goes, but I'm looking at Palmetto State, and they say that Tiger Outfitters is actually a completely different company that happens to rent space from Palmetto State. Says do not have any information on their general lead time in terms of shipping things, but he can assure you that from the Palmetto State standpoint, Tiger is its own separate entity.
Well, probably not anymore.
Well, there you go. you've got the latest and greatest.
So, in the fantasy category, anything you looking at out there?
Well, that's one of the things that I brought up, the CZ shotguns. I'm kind of interested in some of the CZ 20 gauges. There's a CZ semi-automatic 20 gauge that's out there. I'm thinking that may be nice. Like I said, I'm the bad shoulder guy, so it doesn't matter which side I use. They're both bad, and I'm thinking that 20 gauges for me are the way to go. 20 gauge is actually a very good load to use teaching someone how to shoot shotgun, and you don't get the pain in the shoulder that you would get with the 12 gauge. So it's also often offered as a bantam model, or something that's for a young teenager.
Youth model.
Yeah, a youth model. There you go.
I really like the youth model Mossberg 500 and 20 gauge. Personally, I like a shorter shotgun for home defense, and really, I think that bantam model is pretty nifty.
Yeah, and that's one of those things
to be afraid of it.
That's one of those terms that I think has fallen by the wayside, unless you're talking about chickens. People, they kind of make the mistake of getting full size adult shotgun stocks for kids whose arms can barely reach the trigger guard.
Well, you got to get them started early, and Mossberg with the youth model, and Remington as well with the youth model and bantam models. I think it's Mossberg that likes to call it the bantam, and Remington calls it the youth. They've made pretty good steps with that, and I think they're decent quality shotguns.
Yeah, certainly, and like I said, we've said it in the past. Steer clear of the 16 gauge. That's not going to do you any good unless you want to go ahead and put it over your mantle.
Right, yeah. There's just not a whole lot of 16 gauge ammo sitting out there, and it's really a shame because in my area recently, I've seen a couple of Browning Auto 5s and Remington Model 11s, which is just Remington's version of the Browning Auto 5, coming up, but they're always in 16 gauge. And man, I'd like to have one of those, but I'd like to have it in 12.
Well, and that's the thing. When I do see the Browning Auto 5s for sale on the gun traders, usually they're about $500 to $550 is the asking price.
Yeah, I've not seen a good used Browning Auto 5 for less than $500-600. If it's in nice shape, you're looking at $700-800.
Yeah. Well, the way I look at it is that if you can pick up a nice Auto 5 for $400 to $500, that's probably a good deal.
Depending on what shape it's in.
Yeah, I mean, how old are most Auto 5s? These were pretty wicked in the 50s and 40s. Browning Auto 5 was pretty much the king of shotguns, right? Yeah, probably up until mid 60s. Yeah, so you're looking at over 50 years of dings and knocks to the stock and the wood. So as long as the barrel and the metal is still in good condition, you can refinish the stock.
Yeah, and that's something that I'd like to just remind people that don't overlook the quality of the older shotguns, and definitely don't overlook the value of the older weapons, especially shotguns and rifles. Really, in particular, the house branded ones, the Western Fields, the Ted Stevens, the Revelations. Those are usually made by larger manufacturers, a special run for the retailer. Damn. Time
goes fast, doesn't it?
It went fast. Everybody get out there, buy yourself a gun, buy some ammo. Nick, it was wonderful to speak to you. Thank you, UCY. Thank you, Jules, for everything. Nick, you got anything?
I want to say a big shout out to my buddy Chris. Thanks to our PrimerTime listeners in chat, and we'll see you next week. Take it easy, Michael.
Hey, you guys be good. Everybody stick around.